I'll begin by explaining the expression itself, throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Now, some say that the origin of this story is in the old European towns during the Middle Ages and also in the Western United States, where water was scarce, that the European family would have to share the bathtub or the whatever they were using to take a bath in that time, and that the rule was the male would of the house, oldest male, presumably the husband, would first take his bath. I'm not sure in which order, but then the wife, then the child, the children, and then lastly the youngest or the baby. Now, they say that the water would be so murky with dirt from the previous bathers that it was often hard to see the baby, and thus people would accidentally throw the baby out with the bathwater on occasion. As a result of this, it has become a proverb or a metaphor used in various ways, throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's primarily used as an idiom. It's an idiomatic expression, which is used to suggest an avoidable error in which something good is eliminated when trying to get rid of something bad or negative. Now, in regard to the so-called Negro question, and you can find this pretty much in your basic encyclopedia, probably in Wikipedia. This is a famous quote from Thomas Carlyle, who in 1849 apparently wrote an essay on slavery. And it says, "And if true, it is important for us, in reference to the Negro question and some others, the Germans say, you must empty out the bathtub, but not the baby along with it. Filing out your dirty waters with all zeal, and set it careening down the kennels, but if you can, keep the child." And if you follow this train of thinking, then that is exactly what they did. They called themselves abolishing slavery and giving all the appearance of a free society while enslaving them mentally through linguistic terrorism with the marks of Negro, black, and colored, keeping them in a slave status legally and politically, socio-economically, and all the while physically enslaving them through the so-called criminal justice system. Which brings me to my next segment. This segment I like to call Throwing Out the Baby with the Bathwater. And this baby is a Moorish baby. We have to understand that since Noble Jew Ali came, pretty much all of the movements after Moorish Science Temple, Moorish Holy Temple of Science originally, are basically extensions of that movement. Deviant in some ways though they may be, they are still extensions of that movement. And as a result, they carry within them both positive, forward, moving attributes in line with the mission of Noble Jew Ali and of the temple and of the Moorish movement. And they also house within them elements that have infiltrated or have joined with that. original concept, and thus brings it out of tune on certain issues, not every issue. See, this is what we must understand. On some issues, it's still the same. Just because you're a Moor, it does not mean that you disagree with 100% these groups' concepts. In fact, in some regard, we differ very little on many issues. Now, these are whole different groups. But what about the segmented aspects of the Moorish movement within itself? Not every temple, and I don't care who lay claim to it, has the 100% guarantee application of the science brought by Noble Jew Ali. Because the movement is fragmented. You have some that are demonstrating more than others in regards to certain aspects of what Noble Jew Ali brought. And this is where the issue of throwing out the Moorish baby with the bathwater comes in. Because we differ very little in relationship to the volume of information that exists within the movement, or that exists within these particular groups, the volume of information that they have that one could be benefiting from is larger in proportion to the amount of disagreement with that information, if you can understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you may disagree with 10% of what one Moor is demonstrating. The whole other 90%, it may be all good. But within that 90% of information, there might be information that you yourself do not have in the other temple, because of how it was preserved. And so what happens is, because temples don't get along, the people now do not have access to that 90% of information. That is theirs by birthright. And that is not right. So that groups are at odds with one another. It's really not the people in the groups, it's the heads of the groups. Somebody keeping it going, stirring it up at the top, and then it trickles down. And as a result, the large volumes of information, if you were to put the volumes of information together from everywhere, the movement would be so much more potent. But it's because the issues wherein people differ that this has not come about in certain circles. And 9 times out of 10, the circles that this does come about in are considered what you might call renegade Moors, or not demonstrating it right in some form or fashion, because they're not leaving that division between them. They realize that there's a volume of knowledge there that can be accessed, and that you don't have to throw the Moorish baby out with the bathwater. You can access this information, and if you're not vibrating on that rate, if your understanding is not there to where you can't accept the totality of the information, there is indeed a portion in there that is still belongs to you, and that is yours, and the people get it.